Good evening, and welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. We are at episode 663. This is being recorded on Wednesday, February 9, 2022. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Brett Van Sprumberg.
You can find out when we go live for events like this podcast recording session by going to pcper.com/subscribe. And if that is actually working, then you will be subscribed to our text mailing list. You get an old-fashioned electronic mail about an hour or so before we go live, or, give or take 15 minutes. I got mine at around 9 o'clock tonight. Eastern time.
I still want to include a classic selection of old viruses from like DOS days, but Sebastian won't let me.
You've never asked. Look, if it's an old enough virus, I think we wouldn't really be liable. I mean, I don't really know how that works. Like a boot sector virus from the 386 era.
Yeah.
Just it's art at that point. Make an NFT out of it, and then
hanging on a wall.
Done.
Patreon.
Do I have to just...
Speaking of paying for things,
you can support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/PCPer. We had 3 people join up in the last week or so. We mentioned Aaron last week, but I did not relay Aaron's personal message request, which he has asked Josh to read.
yes,
But we
Josh.
also have to join. We have to welcome Lars and Jay Style to the family as well. I've sent them messages.
Thank you both.
from the J Styles band.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're part of an exclusive community now that they never even knew existed before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's amazing what your contribution can do for you. At least for your self-esteem. We don't actually do anything specific for you. But Josh, did you see his Happy Valentine's Day message from Mr. Aaron?
yes.
Okay. I'll add music
my
to this
audio
in
working?
post. Yes, it is.
It's all good.
Yes.
Aaron asks, please wish my beautiful wife a happy Valentine's Day and let her know that I love her even more than my EVGA RTX 3090 for the Win 3 Ultra that she was not thrilled about a few months ago. And while even the mighty 3090 will inevitably be upgraded from many moons from now, she could not possibly be replaced. So, Aaron's wife, from the bottom of my wallet, or maybe your husband's, we wish you a happy Valentine's Day. We hope that it's full of love, prosperity, and really good cooling on an overclock 3090. Kisses.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Brought a tear to everyone who doesn't own a 3090.
Yeah, no.
I know. I thought the message had a really sweet bit of product placement, but then he sort of veered away from that and then went personal. So that was kind of
is
my
Aaron
takeaway
actually
from it.
Somebody that we know from EVGA?
I don't think so.
I will
Maybe.
say, though, if you want to read between the lines.
Jacob in the sky.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you want to read between the lines, he said, even though the 3090 will inevitably be upgraded, she could not possibly be replaced. That does not mean that she should not be upgraded.
Possibly. Yeah.
Yes. So,
Yes.
Aaron's wife, you might be looking at a possible upgrade situation many moons from now. Moving on to food discussion, Josh, we will throw it back to you in Laramie, Wyoming.
Again?
Stupid
Oh, man.
Sexy fries.
Damn it.
Yeah, well, this is, it's not fries. Well, okay, they're fries. What happened to my phone? Oh, yeah. This one is an interesting one. We hadn't had this ever before. It's called the Alamo. And I mean, how could you forget it? It's one beef patty, chips, which they make there, green chilies, chipotle cream cheese, and sparky fire sauce, all together under one set of buns and into my stomach. It was interesting. It had a little bit of spice to it and a little tang. The chilies were nice. The cream cheese was pretty tasty with the chipotle added. The consistency was a little odd, just because it kind of came out pinkish, as one would expect. But yeah, no, fantastic burger. And yeah, they started cutting their own fries again. which is always a plus. And a little too salty, but I'll take the good with the bad. And in this case, it was overall very good.
Mostly armless, writes Jeremy Hellstrom at PCPro.com. The NVIDIA deal to acquire ARM from SoftBank is no more.
And there was much rejoicing.
Who could have ever predicted this other than Charlie from Semi-Accurate?
Who is very, very willing to tell you that he did.
There was a lot of doubt, from when they announced this, that it would go through, just because it would have to go through several regulatory processes. The UK was not interested in, ARM, their crown jewel of their tech world, to be bought up by NVIDIA, much less, any American company. And China was not looking at it very kindly either, because, a lot of their CPU production is all based on ARM. NVIDIA promised to leave kind of the goose that laid the golden egg alone and let them do themselves, but a lot of people just didn't trust that. And this was going to be one of the highest priced acquisitions in the modern era. And it would have been interesting. It would have certainly made a juggernaut out of NVIDIA. But there was going to inevitably be more backlash, not just from governments, but people like Apple were looking at RISC-V or RISC-V, whichever way you want to call that, pretty closely, just because I don't think they wanted to really work with NVIDIA. I mean, they have some bad blood. I mean, Bumpgate cost them a pretty penny. And it just probably wasn't going to work. And so it all just dropped off. And now SoftBank, in the next year, will be doing an IPO for ARM. And it's going to become a publicly traded company. And one interesting thing that we discovered about ARM is, their finances have been behind a curtain for a long time since SoftBank acquired it. And we always kind of assumed that it was losing money every quarter because they were growing, they were expanding, they were buying up smaller design teams and groups, taking a lot more technology that they previously had not done. And the assumption was just, they're taking this money from SoftBank and they're probably losing money, even though they're licensing out all these designs and the architecture and they had neural processors and GPUs and CPUs and a large portfolio of all of these products across the board that they were licensing out to pretty much everyone. And billions of chips were being produced a year. And finally, when this announcement that NVIDIA would not be buying them and they would be in fact going public through an IPO, they've actually been making money every year, and they're, in the billions of dollars of revenue. And I think last year they claimed $900 million in actual net income. And so this is a big positive for ARM going off by itself, in that their accounting is really tight. And even though they're growing and expanding, they're still staying within their, budgetary lines and doing well. So, yeah, everybody's kind of breathing a sigh of relief that ARM is going to stay by itself. It's going to be a publicly traded company once again, and again, it's probably going to be just a huge IPO once it happens, and it's going to happen before March 30th, 2023, I believe. And so they got a lot of work to do in between now and then, but it should be very interesting.
But one of the things I didn't realize is that SoftBank owned WeWork. So apparently
they
a lot
own
of
all kinds of...
Apparently they do. And apparently, apart from ARM, they've all been doing poorly, or at least below expectation. Because sometimes below expectation still means they raked in a couple of $1 billion. Mm-hmm. So I think SoftBank is kind of looking at this as, for our back end, we kind of need some money. So a big IPO is probably going to get us some of what we need. Mm-hmm. And it's, you're standing there. Which is worse? Do you give it to Jensen and NVIDIA, or do you give it to the NASDAQ? I honestly don't know which of these two horrible propositions I prefer.
I mean, Dell went private again, so I mean, there's
Yeah,
no
well,
reason that.
I'm public, I'm private, I'm public, I'm private.
Wait, are they currently
Yeah.
public or private? I've lost track.
They are private.
They're private.
Yeah, I
right
don't
now.
think that
Okay.
they're ever going to go public again.
I just try to still figure out what's going to happen to ARM China.
Yeah, that's the weird
Because
one.
you've still got that fired CEO that refuses to leave and shit-canned all of the people that ARM hired to replace him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just still there. I mean, it's in the courts, and it has been since, 2000, April,
18
May
or something?
Yeah, like it's been a long time.
It's been
and
a
still
while.
going on.
Yeah, no, when you do business in China, you have to do some really strange things. Essentially, you have to cede half the control over to the Chinese government. They are half owners. So,
Right.
AMD did this. Everyone who's ever worked with China, they've had to do
Google
a
friggin'
subsidiary. Yeah, they had to do a subsidiary that is half owned by the Chinese government. That it's your stuff, but you only have 49% control. And so that's why this dude is still in charge over there. It's bizarre. It's not a great way to do business, but that's how they do business. So
A timely comment from Time Twin in the YouTube chat brings up Intel's investment in RISC-V, which I was going to flip to.
I was going to talk about NVIDIA telegraphing this move by investing in a big bunch of programmers in Israel, but this one's even more interesting.
Yeah, I labeled this one "flipping the script."
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. RISC-V has been making a lot of waves with them doing essentially open source CPUs, and I don't know how they make their money, but they do. But anyhow, Intel is investing in them because I guess they feel that ARM needs a more competition in there, and RISC-V is it's an interesting technology. It's a good design, and these guys like Western Digital, they take the design and they make their own controllers out of them. I mean, it's not like you can go out and buy a RISC-V CPU. I mean, you can, but they're like dev boards and stuff like that. I mean, these are all integrated usually into proprietary controllers and stuff like that, but that may not always be the case, because the first problem that you run into in trying to make a more general purpose CPU is that you got to have software support for it. And right now, I mean, yes, I believe that there are a Linux kernel and some other things, but software support is really key for moving any architecture forward, and there's just not a whole lot of it out there. Again, this is why it's mainly controllers built in house and taking these designs and still licensing them, but you're not really paying a whole lot as compared to ARM. I don't know the exact contract details. I mean, the RISC-V group still, SI5 still has to make some money somewhere. But anyway, what do you think, Jeremy?
It's kind of really interesting. And thankfully Power 9 guy isn't still around, because he'd be apoplectic at this point, to be perfectly honest. It makes a huge amount of sense in the same way that nobody knows about, ARM. Who were they? I've never heard of them. Like, dude, they've got like probably 100 processors for every person on the planet. Whatever you own that isn't a computer directly is probably running on ARM. And so the RISC-V architecture has been in the background this whole time. It's never been sexy. It's never really been a lot of fun to talk about, even on the podcast. But none of us have ever poo-pooed it. And seeing Intel sort of doing what we've been seeing for the longest time, which is the fight between ARM coming from low power but trying to do higher power processing versus AMD and Intel doing high power processing but trying to lower their power. This is the sort of stuff that could really change what Intel is able to provide. And I think that's going to be kind of really neat.
Actually, I didn't realize that Intel already had a RISC-V chip. Just looked that up. The Neos, is that how I pronounce it? NIOS? Neos 5 processors, Neos V.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, they've got tens of thousands of engineers, and why not?
It seems like the antithesis of what it is they were all about, of course, with their sticking by CISC for so long and not adopting a lot of the other architectures that were moving more. Everybody's sort of gained a little bit of the other architecture, CISC and RISC. They've taken on a few elements from the opposite way of thinking, executing instructions.
Okay.
True. Yeah.
Internally, they're all risky processors. So it's just x86 is a weird thing, but it's not much of a issue really anymore. Even in not only good performance but also good and mobile. That architecture and process technology have eclipsed what was once a performance tax on that stuff. But I think BK was obviously not a great CEO of Intel, and the new guy Pat, he's pretty forward looking, and I think that they've got some aggressive moves on the horizon, and going RISC-V is certainly one of them. And would
you say he runs close to the metal?
And it's, by the way, it looks like IP from they make their money off of IP, intellectual property type stuff. Doling that out, IBM? Selling. No, RISC-V. Looks like that's how they make their money.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
AMD record market share. Look at that line, the red line. They're hitting 20% on desktop, although it is starting to fall again. If we look at Q4 of 2021, so
yeah, but look at that server line.
One of the reasons was due to supply constraint in supply. If they could have made more, they would have sold more.
Right,
indeed.
This is the problem with being a fabless semiconductor company, because then you're at the mercy of whoever can.
Wait, when are we talking about Lucid Logics?
Yeah, Lucid Logics is also a fabless semiconductor company. We could use them now. If Windows 10 embraced multi-GPU, and why not, really? We're in the age of chiplets, and we've lost multi-GPU support, especially in the age of not being able to buy graphics cards. Who wouldn't like to put two GTX 770s together and have something halfway decent in modern games? But you just can't. That's all. Rant over.
Done.
But with Lucid Logic, you could get a 6800 XT and combine it with a 3080.
Exactly. With
if you can find
no
either.
penalty.
None.
Only about 40% performance loss. Okay. Another hilarious pun-infused title from Jeremy here. Panic at the CISCO. Now, we last time we talked about a 9.8, some lame 9.8 out of 10. No. 2, 3 perfect 10s. Security.
Congratulations.
I'm assuming this is only the managed switches from Cisco.
Well, they're the cheaper versions, which are usually found in we can't afford the fancy stuff. And the best part about it is that there are 4 specific routers affected by these, of which there are 2 that have patches. So the other 50% of you are, kind of a little bit in trouble because they hit the trifecta. We got a remote code execution bug, a privilege escalation bug, and a command injection possibility, all of which are remote. They do not need you to have physical access, so you do need to sort of be into your network, but chances are you're using this as your firewall too, so yeah, it's not great. They also added another 7 or 8 patches or vulnerabilities, all of which are, mere 7s or 8s. They're not the perfect 10s. Literally, the only good news about this is that a Shodan scan shows that while the exploits are known, they're not really posted to any of the usual places that people grab these.
I love that they call it the Shodan scan.
What else would you have called it, Josh?
Yeah.
What else?
Look at you, hacker.
Do you have elite hacks or skills? Do you want $100,000? ExpressVPN, not a sponsor of this podcast currently, is offering $100,000 to the first person who hacks its servers. This is a good way to get some positive press after all the negative press they got after their acquisition.
Yeah.
It's a bug bounty for ethical hackers.
I thought this was a nice counterpoint to the perfect tens at Cisco to say, oh, we think we've all got it going on. Come hack us.
There's some conditions, I guess, but
Conditions may apply. Oh, sorry, that was my ad voice.
Yeah, all right.
You may or may not be arrested after winning the contest.
Tweaktown has reviewed the WD Black SN770. That's a DRAMless or DRAMless SSD is the
Thank you, Tweaktown. I really appreciate it.
So, it's just one of those super slim down. We've seen the WD Blue like this. You have a minimal complement of chips.
But what kind of flash is that?
What kind of flash is it?
That's a brand new type of flash we haven't seen before. That's BiCS5. Yeah.
5, you say?
That is actually how this poor little beastie of a 4-channel PCI 4.0 without any cache on it whatsoever is actually able to compete with some drives that you wouldn't think it would be able to. Now, it's not winning anything because, it doesn't have any RAM on it, but that BiCS5 actually looks like it's going to boost some stuff up. So, yeah, for a TLC drive, which about $130 for the 1 terabyte, which, is going to fluctuate a little bit, but generally doesn't too much. It's, it beats the Intel one that I've got. And if you're not writing much, if you're just reading, it's pretty brilliant. Like, it's up there, with the big boys on that one. It beats the CyberRock 4 Plus.
Offers very respectable random 4K performance.
Yeah. Now, the performance is a little wibbly wobbly in some things. It doesn't do quite as well. I don't think it liked Anvil very much. But overall, for what it is, it tells us that once you start seeing the BiCS5 come out on some of the better drives, it's probably going to be pretty impressive. And then again, why are we even talking about PCI 4.0 SSDs at this point?
Because PCIe 5 is just...
PCIe 5.0 is already out. This is old garbage now. It's a price premium. Honestly, you're not going to really notice the difference unless you're doing actual work. If you're farting around, playing games and that, it's unless you just like downloading 100 gig patches all the time for kicks and giggles. It's, this is going to be a really good choice because, an MP600 Pro XT is a little bit more expensive, but the amount of performance boost you get is nowhere near the price delta. So it's interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else going to come out of this because this is a SanDisk controller that they used. Yeah. Unspecified, and didn't see anything. But I gotta say, Western Digital, you're getting confusing with your branding because there's a couple of commenters were mentioning this is more like a high-end blue,
yes,
than a low-end black. Mm-hmm. And I sort of point out, well, there was a time where they'd released 2 different versions of the black, and unless you were familiar with the serial numbers or realized the sticker was slightly differently placed on one of the models, you had no idea which one you were getting. So Western Digital, maybe...
that reminds me of something else. Western Digital not knowing what you're getting. Oh, yeah, the Western Digital Reds. Though they have sort of addressed that.
That was a nasty problem.
Yeah. Oh. Who doesn't like Sound Blaster cards? Well, I don't know if this is actually branded as Sound Blaster. Yes, it is. It is branded as Sound Blaster.
It is.
Tech Power Up has a review of the new Sound Blaster X4. This is an external unit.
All I gotta say is, what a knob.
Oh. I wonder what the knob feel on this is. Is that an aluminium knob? Is it plastic?
No, it got negative marks for being all plastic.
Oh,
yuck. Oh.
Yeah.
$140 and you put a plastic knob on it.
Right? The audio aesthetics are wonderful. The visual ones and tactile ones, not so much.
I wonder if it's on Audio Science Review yet. Everyone's favorite source of extremely in-depth review of computer audio products. Tech Power Up, lots of pictures here.
Boy, that box has been through better days.
Yes.
Yeah, it's probably not the first.
The perils of ground shipping. What are you going to do?
You're fourth on the review list. Can you please walk it back up so we can send it to the 5th guy?
It's an external sound card. I'm guessing.
Ooh, look, LED writing.
Oh,
so there's a.
And that's the priority.
And I believe when it was green, it's now controlling your audio.
Okay,
Your-
so at least the
what
lights
you're
mean
hearing.
something.
You push it again. Now controlling the volume levels on your microphone.
Okay.
And then the third one is a balance mode for when you're playing a game, playing music and streaming. So you can sort of balance the sound levels, although I'm not sure how you do that with a single knob. But apparently
Hey,
that's what
you
they do.
can look, Jeremy. You can make a human life with a single knob. So I don't know why
It's
you're
true.
questioning.
Well, it needs a slot.
Well, yeah, but that's a universal interface. It's a universal interface.
It is that.
So I mean, it fits in just about anything if you try hard enough. So yeah, they go into the software, other things.
Yeah, I've
I
got
don't
one of their number 5s or whatever. I can't remember which.
Number 5 is alive?
Exactly. Let me take a look at my Sound Blaster.
I've got
which
a
one I've
G5.
got. Oh, I got the AE5 Plus, and it is a significant jump in terms of audio quality from built-in motherboard sound. I mean, still, even though they've done great things with motherboard sound, it's still standalone cards. They're going to have better filtering. It's going to have better components in there, a lot more components. So yeah, your 5.1 audio or 7.1, whatever you're doing with that card, you're going to have better separation. You're going to have less crosstalk. It's going to be in a more electrically quiet environment, even though it's still
USB
inside your
ports are good.
case. Yeah.
Yes, your USB ports are good.
If you're using your front USB ports on this piece of case, then it's going to be garbage. But yeah, when you've got a USB one outside of it, it performs even better electrically. And you can do a lot of stuff in there that you can't do inside a computer. Well, maybe not a lot of stuff, but you can still make it a little bit more accurate. And again, depends on what DACs you use and op amps and all of that. But yeah, I think it's even got built-in headphone amp in there, and
that one does.
up to 600 ohms headphones. So pretty interesting looking in terms of specs. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of a pain to have a little. It's not a huge piece, but I mean, it is going to take desktop space, and then you got to plug in speaker wires or however you're doing that from. So. Neat.
Now, one thing
I'm glad that audio is kind of coming back a little bit more. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead, Jeremy.
One thing it does do, and I don't think yours does either, is it's actually physically 7.1.
Mine's physically 7.1.
Okay, mine's virtual, so it's it's not quite as good. But that is one big difference. If you buy one that's the virtual 5.1 or 7.1, you're never going to get the same as with the actual separated jacks.
And you can get really fancy if you have not one but two available PCI Express slots. Get something like a new Audio Pro, which has the separate surround.
Yeah.
And this thing is like all discrete components. It's ridiculous.
And the Pink Panther theme on it sounds lovely.
Yes, and probably the best reviewed sound card I've ever seen as far as measurements go. An Audio Science review. I don't see the new creative one on here, but they've done many a creative review in the past. Back in the day, Creative made noisy cards because they didn't use a whole lot of shielding and, questionable components. But that was back in the ISA era. Things have improved since then.
Yeah, and you can get the Sound Blaster 8-bit SCSI 2 for only $500.
Yes, I saw that on eBay. It's a steal at that price, but it is new in box.
But I miss my game port.
Yeah, your game port. Jeremy,
I had a game port and a SCSI interface.
Jeremy, do you remember when you used to put builds on the site? Say, this is a recommended build. And every one of your builds had a progressively better sound card in it.
Yeah, I remember those wonderful days where I could even look at the hardware leaderboard without breaking down into tears and just not being able to type.
And that's
we'll come back one day when it's not a travesty. But it's a travesty right now.
Yeah.
Buy this video card. It's the best one on the planet. It's only $12,000, 10 times over its
Oh, come on. A 6900 XT you can get brand new from Newegg right now for $14.99.
Does that
all right, I'll update it.
14? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw
Newegg-
3090 for about the same price, too.
Newegg's
Yeah, it's
Newegg's
terrible,
better.
but
Newegg's better than Micro Center.
Yeah, but only
general,
for
yes.
the two ridiculous high-end cards.
yeah.
I meant for
Yeah.
If
price.
you go lower than that, then all hell broke loose. And
And you
Oh,
get a
Bruce,
6700 XT for $989, and it was on sale for like $949 today.
I mean, it is a fast card. It's the 6700 XT is faster than a 5700 XT.
Yeah.
But I mean, would you pay $1,000
For $1,000? No.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Micro Center had them at around 1,500 just a couple days ago.
Maybe for
And that
Micro
was, I
Center
thought, the best-
insiders. Was it in a newsletter? Did you have to click a special link?
No, I
as a
went to the
Micro
site.
Center
No.
Okay.
No. Do you want me to bring up Western Digital and how nasty the drive situation was again? Because I want to make sure that Jeremy's thing doesn't go unnoticed. I heard it. Okay.
Discerning
Thank you.
listeners pick up on puns like that.
no, Bruce S. just totally distracted me with a friggin' pork beef
Steak
thing.
sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah, why did he
my
do
God. That's
Looks good.
It's looking good.
For reasons I do not fully understand, but I like it. There's a story on our list about upgrading the storage in your 386.
that's modified frequency modulation, baby. This is before IDE.
Yes.
But no, I ran into this, and Hardware Asylum has been doing this project with this 386 for quite a while now, and they're just pimping it out. Because they didn't just do the old MFM hard drive. See, there was a new wonderful thing called run length limited controllers, which you could either buy separately and add on to the hard drive, which usually ended in tears, but was kind of fun. Because the thing was that because it changed the way and the accuracy of the signaling, it not only made the drive read and write faster, it actually increased the capacity by about 50%, plus or minus. And after a while, they started incorporating them directly in. But this is back before master and slave and doing pin jumpers. This was back when it was a lot of fun to work inside of a computer and just try and figure out why in the frickin' hell this thing doesn't work. And hey, if you've still got a 3.5-inch floppy, you still use MFM to this day. That's still how they how they are able to communicate even when everything else is pretty much on fire. So I thought it was hilarious for some of us that actually sort of vaguely remember these days, and for those that literally never lived through it. It's kind of worth looking at. It's a lot of fun, either as a memory or as a, okay, when they used to say that they walked uphill both ways to school barefoot in an 18 feet of snow, like, okay, maybe it wasn't quite that bad, but yeah, it was actually pretty bad back then.
Did you have a mallet for like stiction issues to get the drives going?
Wooden.
Oh, okay.
You could hold them and like spin them like this in order to like break them free sometimes. Just get a little rotational.
Just drop it
Snap
2
to
inches down on the desk.
You could do that with SCSI drives occasionally. That would also work sometimes. And they wouldn't work very long
Or
after
start
that. But
your damn SCSI drive.
yeah. I used to deal with a lot of them because I was supporting Sun Spark workstations back then.
Oh, well, there you go then. Back when hard
of SCSI.
drives were not something you wanted to drop on your foot.
No, the externals were actually giant 5 1/4, quad height.
Yeah.
I guess if you could call it something like that.
Yeah, remember the Bigfoot drives?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Hey, that was kind of a random look back at the past. And speaking of randomness, random numbers.
Yes.
Do you like them? Do you want them to be even more random?
They're important. Random numbers are really important.
For video games, I guess. Like
For
a role-playing
everything,
game.
pretty much.
Everything, my man. Everything.
You really want me
was
to
this
try and
again?
talk about scare-me-uns?
If you want to.
Yeah. Generating better random numbers with 1 micrometer magnetic swirls in
Which only
stable
means
films.
that they produce more random numbers than we're able to detect the pattern, sadly. But still, that for however long this lasts, it will be random. Okay, so electrons are already freaking weird. But if you create what is essentially a two-dimensional film with some magnetic properties so that you can actually trap electrons on this, and it's not truly two-dimensional, but for not getting into the math that I can't even get into, assume that it is. And so when these electrons line up, what they do is their magnetic fields end up perpendicular. And the lovely thing is that you can feed a little bit of electricity to this flat sheet, and one of the electrons is going to flip. So instead of spinning this way, it's now spinning that way, but it never spins sideways because, well, physics is freaking weird at that point. What that does is create magnetic eddies in the skyrmions around it. And these buggers are robust. They last, and they wander around the sheet. And we're really hoping that we can start using them for computational purposes because they're very bizarre. They do ones and zeros very well, and they're tough little buggers. But the other thing about it is that if you sort of trap an electron in that state on the film, it creates it starts to, sorry, if you trap one of these skyrmions with a magnetic field so that it can't bounce around like it likes to, well, it gets pissed off and it starts growing and shrinking in a very random way, at least as far as we know. And so that's what
I do that too.
Yeah, well, I usually just grow. There's not much shrinking.
Depends on my life. Never mind.
Wait, are we still talking about interfacing?
Yes.
Oh, we are definitely talking about interfacing.
Okay.
So, anyways, if you are one of the people that carries around a Crown Royal bag with a little dice and praise to our Jesus, this is probably going to be a lot harder to carry around. It's done at very, very, very low temperatures and such. But what it is they're measuring the changes in size, and as far as I can tell, it's purely random. And being able to generate random numbers is basic to encryption, let alone computing together. Like everything that we've done that seems to be pure randomness, no, you can eventually pick up patterns, which means that you can eventually figure out what the hell is going on. Whereas with this, at this point, there is no predictable pattern we can do. So it's interesting, and this could also be, if it is truly random in this way, cause some issues for a lot of the problems that we're running into if quantum computers get to the point where they are able to just eat through encryption. So, yeah, it's interesting. I encourage you to pop through to /dot, who puts a link in, and there is also a physics.org link that you can go and sort of read the paper if you want to spend a whole bunch of money, because a lot of this is sadly behind a paywall.
Peer-reviewed and expensive.
Yes. Not that it should be, just that it is.
Well, maybe your university gives you access to it if you're a college student.
Or you know someone that is.
Yeah, exactly. And have their password. Or if you just hack it. Just steal it outright.
There's no prize for hacking this one.
Yeah.
No.
Well, via ExpressVPN, so you get the money.
Yeah. Just use ExpressVPN to hack and collect your $100,000 as you pass go. Time for gaming quick hits, and we begin with Warhammer 40K.
This looks a lot more like an XCOM game that's been done in the Warhammer universe than some of the true to pen and paper style ones, which is going to make it a lot more attractive for some people. But the two things that I noticed about it was that, one, Anti-Circus is the boss that you're working for, and two, well, you can choose a target. There is never any hit percentages, so you don't end up with your gun directly in the alien's face telling it that you got a 65% chance to hit. It's a mix of melee. Rock, paper, shotgun got a little chance at it, and we're literally like, okay, so this apostate preacher has this incredibly, ridiculously powerful staff that can just, party kill. They chopped its arm off, thus disarming it. It didn't have a staff anymore. They blew up a bridge where reinforcements were pouring in. So it looks like it's XCOM with a couple of interesting additions to it. That's Andy there that was talking. So the writing is going to be not great, but the overall performance the overall gameplay looks very XCOM-y, just with, Warhammer 40K going on. Hence the S&M Techno Priests. Not out for a while.
Yeah, we're looking
I
at
don't mind that
alpha
game mode.
footage.
I don't mind that game mode. I like XCOM.
Our next gaming quick hit. Oh no.
Yes.
Here we are. How many years later?
9.
Is it just 9? It feels like 90.
Well,
Star Citizen. The roadmap is apparently getting a little bit more vague.
Do you see
How
Mir?
can you disappoint your fans if you won't even tell them what you're going to give them anymore?
Well,
Apparently, the promises they were making were a little bit too specific, and so people could point to it and say, "You said this would happen by this time. It's long past this time, and nothing happened." So now they're just going to be a little more vague.
Why would they stop? They've made $434 million in crowdfunding so far.
And people are still throwing money at them.
Right. Because at this
gotta
point,
buy
it's like
ships.
a religion.
Yeah.
it's become a religion. Oh my gosh.
It truly has.
L. Ron Hubbard would be proud.
He
Oh my
truly
gosh.
would be, he'd be
No,
jealous.
L. Ron Hubbard would be selling
If you want to make
games.
real money, you make an open-ended game.
You never release it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
If you ever
Yeah.
release it, that's it. Game over. You just keep dragging them on.
Dying Light 2 is next on the list, which doesn't seem terrible, according to this.
Well, from a playability perspective, is it really cool to go parkouring and explore an open world and things like that? But there unfortunately is some initial release bugs. But it seems like it's going to be a really excellent game and a worthy successor to the original 2015 Dying Light. I've been playing a lot of Dying Light 1, so I'm actually really looking forward to this one. I was hoping it was going to be a pretty smooth launch for the Polish company. That's actually where they're from. Did you know that they got started in like a fight game, like a head-to-head fight game? It was pretty lowbrow, and they did Dead Island before this. I didn't know.
Oh, okay. Heard of Dead Island.
Yeah, so it's the same crew that did that. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be an excellent game, but not at first. Dying Light 2 initials got some teething problems. This next one is, of course, who could resist looking at Dying Light 2 DLSS versus FSR? And I'm sorry to say that the FSR implementation is not fully baked. DLSS is really doing some wonderful things in Dying Light 2, but FSR, they didn't do the highest quality mode, which is probably their best mode. They didn't do it, and there's some issues with that. But DLSS is doing wonders, especially at 4K. The article here says that it's almost doubling performance at 4K. It's great.
In what mode, though? Oh, so it was set to quality. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So similar frame rate, but looks better than FSR in that game, which,
Correct.
AMD fans will say. It's a conspiracy.
Again, this is an implementation. It's an implementation thing. This is a work in progress for the Dying Light 2 team. They've got some bugs to fix, and I would like to think that they're going to get a little bit better FSR over time.
Be Quiet released a new power supply. They actually released two. It's part of their Pure Power 11 series. This is the FM850W. The FM is full modular. The 850W is 850 watts. And it's just as I put here, a light unboxing. A very light unboxing, basic overview, and some completely unscientific load testing. Tune in to see just how unscientific power supply load testing could be. Though, I mean, I just...
Did you stand on it?
I did not. Just for the clicks. So we look at the power supply, look at what comes in the box, and build a system with a 12900K with all the power limits turned off. I pointed out, and used a RTX 3090 Supreme, which is called
just
Supreme
wasn't enough
because it has a third 8-pin PCIe power connector on it, and a triple fan liquid cooler. And then in the BIOS, made sure that the power limits were set to 4,096 watts, which is stock for this processor. That's fine. Take you through a Windows install, but not really. And then start doing things like running, folding at home while running Blender with 2 GPUs and the CPU running full blast and seeing how long it took to shut down the system doing stuff like this. I actually got 991 watts power draw at one point. So anyway, just for some silly
spike.
nonsense.
They make good power supplies. We've got some at work, and they are built like champs.
They have a little bit of a different way of arranging their output power, which sometimes is good in a particular case, and sometimes it's bad. But I guess it works either way depending on whether it's Corsair
twin
style or
12-volt
Seasonic
rails,
style.
which is, I guess that would give it away if you're looking up who the OEM is.
That's true.
Yeah.
I find them fairly robust when well built.
Well, when I was running folding at home on the CPU and both GPUs at full power, and I was using a RTX 3080 Ti and a 3080 Founders Edition cards, 900K. It was fine. It was drawing like 765 watts from the wall, 795. And, fan never really spun up very loud. The fan profile in those is basically targeting 10 dBs until you get up past 70% load, and then it starts to ramp up, but it stops at like 26 dBs. It's a very quiet fan.
Sorry, was this a 750 or an 850 again?
850.
850.
That sounds like a great little unit for someone building their own machine. So, and not horribly expensive.
Now, in the modern era, if you actually look at Newegg pricing, $129 for 80 plus gold, 850 watts. The stuff from Corsair is in the $119 to $139 range, and then something from Seasonic would be a little bit more. So it's kind of right in the middle as far as pricing for a full modular 80 plus gold right now. Let's move on to picks of the week. And who's going to start us out? Let's say Josh.
Me. It's been ages. Some people like to build computers, and this motherboard is a solid one. It's got the 12+2 VRMs. It's a B550, so of course you only get one PCI 4.0, M.2. The other one, it will be 3.0. But it's just a solid built motherboard for not a whole lot. I mean, $136. It's a $6 sale. But really a nice little motherboard for someone who is doing a build, maybe with a 3700G. It would be perfect for that because you could then grow out in the future. It is a board that is not horribly expensive, and it allows you room to grow. So, yeah, buy motherboards. RAM is cheap. SSDs are cheap. They're fast. You can get CPUs everywhere now. And if you have a 2060, what?
Sorry about that graphics card.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to have to migrate your old one to there and just deal with it until times get better. But times are getting better because a lot of these cards are now staying in stock far longer. Even, they're at higher rates as we talked about, but things are slowly improving. They are getting better. And next week, I'll probably talk about a Asus 3060 that I actually bought myself, and I got it off Newegg Shuffle, and it was $449 for a RTX 3060. That's
in the modern era.
That's insane, and they're people are winning shuffles a little bit more often. I only had to go through 5 to get it. So,
and it wasn't bundled with anything.
It wasn't bundled with anything. This was a deal, and I've been doing testing on it this past week, and I'm a little disappointed. It's not any faster than a 2060 Super.
Surprise!
Right, because a 2060 Super was a 2070, and a 3060 is a 2070 with slightly better ray tracing performance.
Yeah, it's going to have better RTX performance, but
that's it.
But your lower memory. I mean, you got more memory, but less speed. So yeah, it's an interesting beast. I mean, if you have a 2060 or 2060 Super, it's a side grade at most. But anyway, moving along.
Jeremy.
All right, someone posted this earlier today. I think it was in the public channel, and it's just too damn funny not to talk about. So apparently, if you were in Seattle and you were listening to the local NPR channel, and you happen to be on a Mazda that was built between the years of 2014 and 2017, apparently your entire infotainment system has been bricked. And in order to fix it, it's going to cost about $1,500 to get the new media unit, which is now permanently stuck in a reboot loop. Why, you might ask, has this happened? Well, it seems that the old Mazda infotainment system depended on extensions and didn't know what a header was. And so these guys sent out HD, your fancy radios. Like when you're listening to a song, it gives you a view of the record album or a CD if you're younger and don't know what a record is. But it gives you the little record art. So they sent out an HD version of some of the cover art. And it didn't have a header, but it had an extension which told all of the master control units to, you just start rebooting, and that's kind of it. So, I mean, this is horrific. If you own one of these cars, you are incredibly upset right now, and spending $1,500 for a new Mazda or for a new MCU, or a used Mazda, but still, it's horrific. But it just shows all of the times that I've been, complaining about visual learning systems and autopilot, and just the ridiculous ways that you can absolutely and totally break these things and cause horrible things to happen. Yeah, well, now even your radio station can do it. So, that's what we've got to look
the
for.
Internet of shit.
Yes.
Brett, your pick this week.
This fits the dollar cost category of good deal for those who still might want a full-sized SSD rather than just a gumstick NVMe. For an entire terabyte of storage, look here. $79. SK Hynix, an SSD, exactly 1 terabyte, so 1,000 gigabytes, with SLC cache. With SLC cache, I might add. And they're advertising, full SATA speeds, SATA SSD. Now, this would make a great, for instance, if you're building like an Unraid server at home, get a couple of these for cache drives, or a game disk, game launching stuff like that. If you needed some storage for that. But it's just flatly a pretty good deal for a terabyte for $80, $79.04. This is going to be probably some limited sale. So go now.
Yeah, to me it just says in stock. This is on Amazon. It's not like one of those time delay or time limited things on Newegg.
Yeah, might not be. Yeah,
still good drives. It just and even though you're down at 500 megabytes per second. I mean, they're very consistent, and access times are still extremely low, and it's in a form factor that is easy to swallow. Not really.
And it has SLC cache on it. That's what the write-up says. It does have cache. It's not DRAMless.
SLC cache, meaning it's pretend. Like it's like they've apportioned off a part of the NAND to act as SLC. But
yes, could very well be. It could be partitioned that way. Yes.
It is anyway. But go ahead.
Yes. For my pick this
Patriot
week,
was brave enough to release a new SATA drive this week too.
They're still
Patriot
useful for a lot of things. And in fact, I don't know if you know this or not. Most motherboards still accept SATA connections. You can still
about a half dozen.
Not just for optical drives anymore.
No, SATA.
Apparently not.
It's what's for storage. Like, some big storage.
They used to come with 6 ports. Some of them come with 4, but. No.
I've seen them with only 2, but
really? That's
kind of an extreme case. Also, Mini ITX probably.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. My pick this week is the exciting world of apparently the one electric tea kettle design that exists. I thought, this is it. No, it's Amazon Basics. Like, this is it. It's Hamilton Beach. Mine is
the Hamilton Beach
Farberware that looks exactly like the Hamilton Beach. Has the same metal look, plastic base that you set it on. You dock these things, and then they boil your water really fast. And a pro tip, if you want to avoid the unsightly scaling from your mineral-infested water, use distilled. And
Don't live in Michigan?
It'll look yeah, don't live in Michigan. This has some steam in it. This is just steam. It's not mineral deposits. But if you look at that water, it's fairly clear. And I've had this for at least 2 or 3 years. And I don't have any scaling issues.
Water.
How often do you change the water?
Is ancient. I don't even know how long ago. But you boil it, and it's fine. So I'm distilling my own water by just boiling the same water over and over again and having it drip back down.
Nice.
It has a little screen filter to, prevent scaling from, going into your cup. It's very exciting. I think I only paid like $25 for it. They're $29 to $35.
They're so handy.
Everything.
Yeah.
I'm drinking a lot of instant coffee these days, so it does come in handy a lot.
But don't drink the
My
water
Huel,
there.
That's how I boil the water from my Huel. The dirt that I eat twice a week.
You just mix up your soup with the pre-boiled, the boiling water? I guess you could make ramen with this too. There's so many uses
absolutely.
for hot water. Does so many amazing.
I know, it's amazing.
You can power a giant locomotive with it, and eat salty.
You need some coiled wires,
noodle food.
tubes. But yeah, you could do that.
Yeah, I didn't buy it at Micro Center though. That was my mistake.
Oh, you should drop over.
That was our show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. This has been the PC Perspective Podcast, and we will be back next week in all likelihood to do it all over again for you. We do it just for you, not for us. I would rather be in bed right now. I have to get up at 7 in the morning and take my son to school, but no. That's all.
Good night.